My talk is called APIs on the Fly. Sinatra's a gem, because it is. That's a pun. There are going to be a lot more of those in here. My name is Doji, and I am first and foremost a Techlahoma volunteer. I run the OKC Design Tech group, which is really a UX design-centered group, and as a developer, I am a DevOps engineer, but I've worked in my share of companies that either don't have the staff to have a full-on design or had to be completely full stack or had to work with interfaces or with users directly and help improve their experiences. And I feel it's very, very important for developers as well to understand that even in your company, you can have an effect on the UX because we're in the fray, we're dealing with it all the time. Additionally, I am the Oklahoma local leader for a group called the Interaction Design Foundation. They run UX courses online. If you're interested, you can just check them out. interactiondesign.org, I believe it is, and you can check that out. You can ask me questions if you like. Today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be just going over Sinatra. What it is, I'll give you some routing examples and a short demo. How many of you have heard of Sinatra? How many of you have used it? Okay. It's pretty awesome. I like it. I am just going into this just really short. I am not a Ruby developer or programmer by any means, but I like the language a lot and I use it in edge cases. So if I'm working on the command line and Bash, my Bash scripts are getting out of hand, then I say maybe I should put this into Ruby. Or in this case, if I need to get APIs across, I turn to Ruby. So here's the problem. We need access to data via a background process, via an API. So you have maybe a program someplace. We want to get that spun up as quick as possible. We want something dynamic. We might keep it, maybe it's just for now, or maybe we're going to toss it away. We don't know, because that's our industry, that's the climate. You always need to be ready to throw things away. It needs to be lightweight. Companies don't always have resources to get you a power server to do everything. But if you can spin up a VM on your machine, toss a little bit of Linux on there, you're good to go. Something that runs in that VM environment. In that case, I turn to my friend Sinatra. He flies me to the moon because there's a lot of world to see out there. And like I told you, he's a real gem. Or the gem is a real gem. That's meta. Anyway, what is Sinatra? Sinatra is a DSL. It helps you make web applications. I use it for APIs and routing, but you can make a full-on web application out of it. I believe there are companies out there that do that. And at the end, with my references, there's a page that just lists all the companies that use Sinatra. But the side benefit of this is I can make an ad hoc API. I don't need to compile crazy programs, and I don't need to toss it onto a specialized web server. I can just run it locally. So the installation and initialization for this is pretty simple. I have what I coded over there. You just do gem install Sinatra. Next, you make a Ruby file. You just require Sinatra, and then you make your first route. And routes are specific. We're going to get into that just a little bit. You make a route, that's a pattern, and you tell it to do something, you end it, you run it, and over here, I love that the Sinatra framework, they like to make fun of themselves. Over here, you just run your Ruby program, and over here it says Sinatra has taken the stage with backup from WebRick. If you change your background server, like you want to use something like Thin or another server, it says with backup from Thin. That's just kind of cool. So they make fun of themselves. And then here's the port that you'd go to. So routing in Sinatra. All of these help you define a route, just like a RESTful API or anything like that. All of those options are there for you. You have your get, post, patch, link, unlink. And basically, when you're coding, you just go ahead and say, this is the kind of request that I want to respond to. this is my route pattern that we have right over there, and then you write out the pattern for your route. You'd put instructions in what you want it to do once that route matches, and then Sinatra takes care of the rest. With your routes, you can do other things as well. This is just get, and today I'm only going to be doing get requests, but you could change that to a post request, but you can put parameters into your route as well. So if you say employee : employee ID, it gives you a hash a params hash, and you can go in and you can find all the parameters that were passed in, and then you can use that for the rest of the instructions in your route. So my use case, once again, is I really just use it as glue internally in a company when I'm working with DevOps things. Maybe I want to know that there was a build built and I need it to talk to another program to tell somebody, hey, this was built, or I needed to kick off something. I use Ruby as that API layer there. That being the case, I'll go ahead and I'm going to show a quick demo. Mandatory demo, let's see here. I have a bunch of code over here to show you. First, we're going to jump into PowerShell, and I have an executable program over here. You can't see my screen? Oh, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. The fire is really happening. Let's see here. Exit. Okay, I think you can see my screen now. There we go. Okay, so I have PowerShell over here, and just go ahead and list out the programs. I made a program over here that pretends to be a database. It's just an executable. Huh? Zoom in? Okay. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. I might not be able to. There we go. So you should be able to see, and I should be able to program. We're zoomed in. And if I just say something like, this is my program, and if I go help, it lists out the help down here. It's just a normal program. It's an executable, so I could double click it and run it. But let's say over the web, I wanted to get some information from it. So these are all the options I programmed into it. Let's go ahead and see what happens. It's getting employee information. So I can get the ID of one employee. I can say ID 1, and it returns this base 64 encoded string. If I want it to be in plain text, I do the same thing. I say plain text. And we can see that it just returns JSON over here. So it's JSON, Harley Whitmel is the person, and it has a bunch of information over here. That's what we're running. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go ahead and show you my routing for an API that I made to talk to that binary program. And this is it. I made a link to the binary program, and you call it this way. Over here, there's the path. It's just the path to the program. And then these are my routes. So I get a normal route. It's going to give me this information. I get the complete list of employees. It's going to talk to that program. Let's go ahead and spin up my Sinatra server. And this is going to do what it is. Everything in that file is active and ready to go. We need a web browser. We can go ahead and kick off our web browser to this location. And I'm going to bring my text editor over here. And we can see that since I didn't specify anything, since it's root, it matches the root route over here, and it just returns the string fly me to the moon, which is what we're seeing over here. It's not communicating with that binary file in the background yet, but we're going to get there. Let's go ahead and get a complete list of all the employees. I make my route, I make sure that it matches, and I say complete employee list, and it gets me a base 64 encoded string of everything, all of the employees over there. That's no good to us because we can't read it, so we can go ahead and we can edit the route a little bit. I'm going to add that flag that we added before, plain text, and I'm going to restart my server. There we go. And this time, whenever I hit this route, it should give me back JSON. There you go. So it's a whole bunch of JSON from that route. Now, one thing to note is routes are, I want to say they're match sensitive. So this one where it doesn't have the backslash at the end is not the same as putting the backslash at the end. And this is more of Sinatra making fun of itself. Sinatra doesn't know how to sing this, which is awesome. But you want to remember that they are sensitive to that. So if you put a slash at the end of your route, which we can do over here, and I can go ahead and restart the server. Now, Sinatra knows how to sing this. Next, with the parameters over here. So you saw that on the command line in PowerShell, I said I only want an employee with one ID, with a specified ID. We can do that over here. I have this route where I'm saying get employee with an employee ID, and I'm using that hash that we talked about over there. So we can go ahead and do this, and we can say, hey, let's go ahead and get an employee with an ID of 5. Who's the employee with an ID of 5? And this is Edeline. And it just gives that back to us as well. So you can use that as a way to get information. The next one, I have another route down here where we're using an optional parameter. So you put a question mark at the end, and if it's there, it does something, otherwise it doesn't. And I'm going to get a list. Let's see what happens whenever we do it without specifying HTML at the end of our route. Table. There you go. It gets everything as a JSON, but if we say specify HTML at the end, now it gives it to me as formatted HTML, which is the same as it would do down over here if I specify the HTML flag. Give me just a second. Oh. And if I move over and I say all, HTML, plain text, and it just gives me, that's the output. So we're communicating with this binary program in the background. It's on Sinatra with an API, so I could hit it from anywhere on the web if I wanted to open it to the web, or if it's in your local network at work, you can do it that way too. So that's basically how I use this. There's lots more there. You can match routes with regex if you want to get there. If you're in for pain, you can use regex there if you like. And there's more that you can do. One more funny thing, whenever you're debugging locally and Sinatra doesn't know what's going on, let's go ahead and do something over here that's just an error. There you go. I am going to mess up a variable. Should be running now, and we're going to hit this one more time to see the last Easter egg that I like. I don't like seeing it, but it's kind of funny. Sinatra dropped his drink. They're full of these. So, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That was just the overview. If you go back to my slides, at the end, whenever you close it down, it says Sinatra has ended his set. Crowd applauds. Yay, he's done. Here are the references. That's the list of companies that use this. And those are the docs where you can get into more detail. It gets very complicated. You can do configs, lots of other things, specify requests, and format your returns. Any questions? Everyone good? Okay, thank you.